When students head back to college in the fall, they may not be heading back to the classroom. We discuss higher education in the age of COVID-19. That's today on Nevada Week.
Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstat, Cashman Equipment, and additional supporting sponsors.
In the wake of COVID-19, college students across Nevada transitioned to online learning for the spring semester. Well, now that the state is reopening, colleges are facing a difficult decision: reopen campus or continue online education. We discuss students' options and the school's backup plans in case of a resurgence. Plus, with so many Nevadans out of work, many are turning to higher ed to gain important workforce skills. To discuss what the fall may look like, we are joined by Dr. Margot Martin, Vice President for Academic Affairs at the College of Southern Nevada; Dr. Vicki Shields, Provost and Executive Vice President at Nevada State College; and Dr. Karen Hilgerson, President at Truckee Meadows Community College. Well, thank you so much for taking your time and being with us today. We really appreciate it. We've been covering a lot of COVID-19 issues here on Nevada Week. Every sector we talk to, multiple institutions that are dealing with face-to-face, in-person type of business are trying to reinvent themselves. And we want to talk about how higher education obviously is doing that too. In this case, around our virtual table here, all of the institutions focus on hands-on, experiential learning, workplace learning as well. And so I want to ask, and Karen, let's start with you if I could. The day in the life of a student in the summer and fall now, how is it going to be different than maybe the summer and fall of last year?
So currently, almost all of our transfer courses are online, and we know that it's going relatively well for students at this point in time. We are also offering some hands-on career technical ed courses, especially as they relate to manufacturing, automotive, health careers are back. We're doing this in very small groups, socially distant protocols, 6 feet apart, making sure people understand hand washing, mask wearing, all of the protocols that we know help stop the spread of the virus. So we are very busy this week trying to help some of the CTE students complete their certificates and degrees from spring term. We also have a bachelor's degree in dental hygiene, and they're back on campus where I am today here in Reno. And I see them in the hallways in their scrubs, and they're just excited to finish their degrees in dental hygiene.
So hands-on learning is possible in this new era of COVID over the short term, of course. Vicki, let's talk about the School of Nursing over at Nevada State College. We're dealing with workplace learning and clinical learning here, where you have to be maybe in close proximity to patients and each other. How's that working out? What are some of the modifications you have to make in a program like that?
Well, for spring, the clinical sites didn't want students there. Probably mainly because they didn't know if they'd have enough PPE to go around, and also they didn't know how overly busy they would be and not be able to supervise students properly. So starting on June 1, about half of our nursing students are back in their clinical sites, and the clinicals are getting more and more comfortable with bringing their students back. And so it was really just the spring cohort that didn't get a completely hands-on clinical experience. So there's some makeup there for them. But then the nursing faculty did an amazing job under the circumstances with virtual labs and virtual clinicals. They handed out test kits to all of the students back in March. They had them drive through, and they threw a test kit in the back of their car, everyone with a mask on, and they worked out their labs that way.
Almost business as usual there at the nursing program. What about some of the other programs you have at Nevada State College? Are you looking at doing any type of blended or hybrid online and hands-on learning programs there?
Absolutely. This summer, so I made a decision early on that we would go all remote learning except for science labs after July 1. So that was following the chancellor's hopes, really, way back in April that by July 1 we could do some in person with all the right safeguards. So that's exactly what's happening. After July 1, we will have all the science labs, the pre-nursing science labs. Our INBRE grant students will be there, no more than 12 to 20 at the most in a lab. They'll be rotating through. They have all the PPE, all of those things. But those will be the first students back on campus for us, and we're very excited about seeing them. All the nursing clinicals are off campus, so although that's going on, we were not seeing them on campus. In the fall, we're going 50% hybrid and 50% online. And so we'll be rotating about 50% capacity in any given classroom. It's a struggle for us because we don't have a lot of large classrooms that we can spread a small class out in, but we're getting it worked out. So about 50% capacity, some plexiglass, partitions that are being put up, and all the social distancing, so we're doing everything we can to give those students a scorpion experience.
Margot, let's talk about College of Southern Nevada here. The ratio, Vic, you mentioned there, 50-50 is what they are looking for, what the goal is. College of Southern Nevada, again, a lot of hands-on, a lot of experiential learning going on here. Are you looking at similar ratios, or give us an idea of where the limits are maybe on the use of technology in a virtual realm here?
So CSN this summer is, much like TMCC, has been bringing back some of our career and technical education that in the spring we managed to do some things that perhaps we said couldn't be done in terms of maybe flipping the classroom to some degree and using technology to teach some of the didactic portions of the class and using, certainly social distancing and deep cleaning protocols to bring some of our CTE students back this summer. But in addition to that, we are using more technology in the summer and as we move into the fall. Typically, our ratio of online to on-ground classes has been maybe 30% to 70%. And in the fall, we're looking at moving to more of a 45% online, 55% on ground. But the majority of what we're going to be doing in the fall is actually going to be hybrid or blended in some way. So the direction that I've given to faculty is that we want to make sure that every class that we offer has a robust online component so that we can be nimble and we can adjust depending on what circumstances look like. So really talking about what are the kinds of things that we can teach virtually, that we can use technology, and then really reserving that face-to-face opportunity for those things that we really do require that hands-on approach. And so what we're looking at in terms of our classrooms is we're looking at filling our classrooms to a 2/3 capacity. Working with our facilities experts, we've determined that depending on the course or the classroom capacity, that's going to really drive the number of students that we're going to be able to have on campus at any given time.
And Margot, from a student perspective here, how has engagement been? You've obviously, as you mentioned, this is a practice that CSN has been employing for some time, but not to the degree of what you had in the spring. Have you noticed really solid engagement from students here with the virtual side of things?
In the spring, we really weren't going, teaching online. We were really going into emergency remote. And I think that we learned a lot about that. One of the things that we know is that a lot of our students don't have access to the technology that they need or access to Wi-Fi. And so CSN was able to step up and respond to that, negotiating with Cox in terms of getting a reduced rate for internet access. We were able to deploy loaner hotspots and laptops and things of that nature. As we move into the summer, much like my sister institutions, CSN is doing the majority of its instruction in the summer in the online environment until we get to after July 1, where we're going to be bringing back some science and some math classes in that flipped classroom model. But as we approach the fall, we do realize that we're going to have to provide some additional supports for our student population that really prefers to be in a face-to-face environment. What I will say, though, is our summer enrollments right now are an indicator that students really do not want to pause their education. They want to be in class. Our enrollments for the summer are quite solid, even though the majority of what we're offering right now is indeed online.
Karen, you mentioned similarly when we were talking earlier in the week, prepping for the show, that we're seeing increases in summer enrollment too, which is a positive sign. I want to talk a little bit about the faculty side of this right here. How are faculty responding and engaging in kind of this new virtual world? I would assume there's a whole new set of skills that you need to kind of learn and understand before you can execute something virtually, or maybe you don't. Karen, give us some perspective there.
So I'm very proud of the TMCC faculty because they really stepped up, and we did not have a lot of time to prepare for the spring transition. But what we're finding now, we're offering numerous workshops every week here at TMCC, and the numbers of faculty who are participating in those have quadrupled. And so they really have an appetite. Most of our faculty have found a great fondness for applications like Zoom, Blue Jeans, Canvas, Blue Button. So they really are holding what we call synchronous distance learning, where the distance learning is happening in real time with a classroom of students in an online venue. And they're getting really pretty good at finding some really tricky, fun ways to get students to get very close, not completely, but much closer to that sense of being in a face-to-face course. What our faculty have realized is that you can do more in a Zoom classroom, for example, with groups than we will be able to do in the fall term in many of the courses that we offer in a COVID-19 classroom environment, where you really do have to be mindful of space and everyone with masks. I mean, it's going to be a different learning environment unless we are fortunate and move into the governor's phase, last phase, or what we call the homecoming phase. So our faculty are really, they have an appetite for this stuff. We had a dialogue yesterday where about 45 of us participated in a really great discussion about racism and injustice in America as a response to the George Floyd murder. That was just so compelling. And the sharing and the authenticity in that dialogue was just remarkable. So there really are some things that we can do online, and I think this is going to change the life of higher education in the future.
And not missing a step is extremely key, especially when you're talking about something as sensitive as the George Floyd murder. Very good example of that. Vicki, let's talk about what Karen said, the appetite here by faculty to learn and be able to make this transition here. What are you seeing at Nevada State College?
Well, it's interesting, the shift, and I too am so proud of what the faculty did in the emergency situation. We really had very few student complaints, and we did not have the massive withdrawal of students that we feared moving into this. So those are all testaments to the faculty. But at first there was still, a lot of resistance to online. Let's get back to face-to-face as fast as we can. But just like what Karen said, they found new techniques. Some of them they're actually preferring. Actually now keeping the ratio of online to 50% might be a little tough. We've got a lot more faculty saying, no, I think I can do this better than hybrid, for all the things Karen said about being in the classroom under these conditions. So what I've decided to do at Nevada State, we've had the Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence helping all the way along to get through the emergency situation. But then it was like, what kind of supports to faculty so that we can get their quality of online hybrid in-face teaching all at the same great quality level that we're used to at Nevada State. And so during the summer, they can get a jump start through a course put on by our Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence that's in depth about best practices just to get going with new technologies and new techniques.
I want to talk a little bit about student support here. All of the institutions around our table here, large populations of students that are low and moderate income, first to attend college and their families, returning students, students with full-time jobs and families. And now we're dealing with COVID-19, which it's just adding a whole new level of challenges for our students. Karin, if we could start with you, how have you transitioned or expanded some of the student services to address this dramatic shift post-COVID here?
So in a couple of ways, all of our counselors have been extremely busy working from home, doing counseling appointments using BlueJeans technology. And our advisors also continue advising appointments. They had started that practice prior to COVID because they found it was just more convenient for students to have an advising appointment through BlueJeans technology, which is a lot like the technology we're using today. So, but our counselors report that they're very busy. When COVID first began, I think they fielded 600 phone calls just within the first couple of weeks of students who were talking about stress and how this was affecting their lives and their incomes. I mean, it really has been extremely stressful for our students. The CARES dollars was a really nice boost. We issued $700,000 in just a couple of weeks, and we are continue to provide CARES dollars to students who demonstrate need. And we will also be offering CARES dollars to students in need in the fall term as well at TMCC. So, and that has been very helpful because we know that there were some students who were struggling to pay rent, and that extra $700 was just what they needed to get them over that so that they could continue their education. I think it's wonderful that our students are staying tough. They really are. The fact that it appears to us that they are returning in the fall and they're going to continue their education, and thank goodness, because we need more Nevadans with college degrees. And that's, I think, why we're all here trying to share this important information with you today.
For sure. And Margot, I wanted to ask you too, on the counseling and advising side, this is something that College of Southern Nevada has invested a lot in, the advising side and even the system navigation side for issues that are outside of what is happening on campus, like housing and food insecurity and employment and things like that. You talk about how that infrastructure has maybe helped propel you into when you're dealing with the crisis here like COVID-19.
Sure. So in our counseling and advising arenas, we've got a new structure where counseling and advising are really two separate functions. We are working really hard to move toward a 350 to 1 ratio from students to advisor, and we're really very close to reaching that goal. And what that has enabled us to do is to employ what is called an intrusive advising model, or kind of a case management model, where we're able to have high touch with our students upon entry, as well as at the 15 credit, 30 credit, 45 credit benchmark, so that students get that just-in-time advising. In terms of counseling, our counselors really are working more on the back end, and they're kind of in triage mode. So when a student maybe is having some personal issues that are conflicting or presenting problems on they're being able to fulfill their academic goals, or maybe they're on academic probation or academic warning, our counselors are participating in our early alert system and really working with students in that regard. But more than ever, before COVID-19, we realized that if we weren't going to address the whole student, we were never going to really help our students be able to make it to the finish line. And so we were able to institute an emergency fund, clothing closet. I have to tell you, in the time frame from COVID-19 to today, we have raised $185,000 for our emergency fund, and more than $130,000 of those dollars has been dispersed to students. And that's on top of our CARES funding. We dispersed more than $7 million of CARES funding to more than 9,000 students who were eligible for that funding. So CSN has really been able to step up and make sure that we're providing that just-in-time assistance for our students.
We're almost out of time. We have a few more minutes. Vicki, I want to talk a little bit about a big part of post-COVID right here. Of course, 33% is the last statistic of unemployed here in Nevada. A lot of people are going to be looking potentially for potentially having career changes or just trying to upskill their skills in a competitive market. At a university, a college like Nevada State College, how are you reprioritizing maybe that type of need here to make sure that you're filling some of the certification gaps here we might see to get some of our Nevadans reemployed?
Well, you know, we have always got a commitment to the workforce of Southern Nevada and the whole state whenever we look at any new certificate programs, degree programs. We've been mainly focusing on degree programs because that's our place. CSN does an amazing job at all of the 2-year and technical. But whenever we do new degrees and think about that, it's always about the workforce. It has to be high demand. So our most recent degrees have been a master's in speech language pathology and a new degree in data science and a new degree in human health sciences. But as far as certification, I mean, a lot of that's going on in our education program. And we have an MOU with CCSD to do the alternative route to licensure for students. So that's for people who have all kinds of other expertise, but just need to be licensed teachers. As we all know about the teacher shortage in the state of Nevada. And so Nevada State's been really committed to trying to shore up that pipeline. And one way is to offer high quality alternative routes to licensure. So we're going to be upping that, and also, a lot of our speech language pathology clinical work to the public. We've been thinking about some micro credentialing, especially in the tech areas, in the visual media areas. And so I think we're definitely going to have to go down some of those roads.
And Margot, really quickly, I want to talk about some of the things that CSN is also offering here too, with so many unemployed in Southern Nevada. What are some of the courses that you might be implementing here in the next year or so?
Absolutely. So right now we realize that we have a large number of displaced workers in Southern Nevada, and that is much more complicated than simply offering coursework. Part of it is, once again, really addressing the whole person. These are individuals that are going to be having an emotional reaction to not having employment, and also perhaps having to change their course of study. So when you have people in that space, you've got to really provide some of this wraparound approach. And so one of the things CSN is actively developing are these one-stops at each of our campuses, as well as our outlying centers, that really focus specifically on the displaced worker. Many of those individuals we will be able to plug into programming that's already available, but in more instances, we're really going to need to help them plug into something that can be completed in maybe 8, 12, 16 weeks that will gain them an entry-level job. So some of the areas that we're looking at are in HVAC, in IT, definitely in healthcare, automotive, believe it or not. There's a lot of work to be had there. And some of the programming that we're looking to build on is wastewater treatment, again, some additional IT certifications. So things that we can plug people in right away, and then we can then build into additional stackable credentials that will help them not only get into a new career, but build on a career ladder. And in addition to that, we're partnering with Workforce Connections so that we can leverage the resources that are in the community, resources that are available at the state level, and resources that are available from a federal standpoint.
And all in-demand sectors is the key right there, too, that is not going to change
Absolutely.
or be immune to COVID-19. I wish we could talk more. We are out of time. Appreciate all of your time and all of your expertise and all of your insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Nevada Week. To learn more about any of the resources that we've discussed on today's show, please visit our website at vegaspbs.org/Nevada-Week. You can also always find us on social media at Nevada Week.